back to the show.
Ow.
It's going to be really hard for people to go up against me on Geek versus Geek because I keep winning. It's not because they're afraid of me, right?
No, it's that was Mark has actually the best statement about that whole thing.
About what?
About the blood.
CGI versus
practical.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I was gonna split the difference between the two of those and say that, one side says practical, one side says CGI, and I said the best thing is a blending of the two to make something where a lot of times what we're seeing now in films is not one or the other. It's a blending of the two. When you see really want to say, oh, that was great CGI or that was great practical. A lot of times it was a really masterful blending of both of them.
But if you had to pick one based on the argument, who would you have picked? Because that's the Geek versus Geek. You have to pick one side or the other.
Oh, Christ, I didn't listen to any of it.
What?
I didn't either.
Oh, anyways.
No one ever listens
Welcome
to us
to
talk,
Mark
Evan.
Martinez, our guest today, as we talk about Monster vs. Disaster. He has a show called Mark of the Beast. I've known Mark for a long time. I met him as part of the Austin Horror Society, and when it comes to horror movies, he knows his stuff. I guess it's safe to say you and Logan know your stuff pretty well. That's why you do a show.
Yeah, I do. Logan is just...
She's learning.
Logan's learning. She's learning.
She's the audience of the group.
Yeah, that's the audience, yeah.
So,
I make fun of the way I say it.
As every year when October comes around, I start fiending for horror movies, and I love monster movies. I go back and I watch monster movies, and then I like slasher films, but I started thinking, there's been this weird transition from the 50s to today that was all monsters, then slasher monsters, then slashers. I don't even know what we have today. It's such a weird thing, because it's like ghosts or fake slashers.
Ghosts that you can't actually kill.
Yeah, or they're not really ghosts, they're living in the walls.
Or ghosts that have these powers that do not, a lot of times when you watch a film, just saw Annabelle.
Yeah.
I love
the new Annabelle. Okay, but the new thing is there's not a set amount of powers that they have. It's the powers of this ghost kind of...
They're oddly convenient.
Yeah, they're oddly convenient, depending on what the scene needs.
Yeah.
And it's okay, wait, why is it doing this? Why is it controlling reality now? Why is it doing this?
Why?
And it seems like it just because
So
this
you're like
needs
me,
it.
where you overanalyze horror movies.
So no, my favorite is that Annabelle is more powerful in this movie, in the prequel, than she is in the last when the
the ghosts gave up by then. They're I'm stuck in this stall.
maybe she hit her peak early.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be fun today to talk about the evolution of monsters to slashers, because we don't get a lot of monster movies today. They're very far and few between. We get a lot of slasher ghost movies or thriller movies like that. But a long time ago, in the 80s, that was prime monster time. You had ghoulies and critters and all those fun monster movies.
Well, even before that, there was a lot of monsters. And,
There was...
So let's talk about the early years of monsters. Why do you think monsters were such the draw for horror in the early years? Was it just a different time, different culture?
Well, a lot of the times it was, as it's probably been said so many times, that it was really a reflection of culture and politics around it at the time. Mm-hmm. A lot of the early 1950s monsters like Godzilla and all these giant creatures were kind of a reaction to the nuclear age, and which I just mispronounced there.
My brother loves those 50s giant creature movies like Them and They and all those giant
Right.
He loves all the, he lives for those. We don't get those today. They just don't make it. I don't know what is so wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's because it was such a political part and a cultural part that today we just don't give two craps.
And
it's whatever.
And if you see, I don't know if y'all have had a chance to see it, but a film that harkens back to those is Shin Godzilla. It just came out. Okay, and if you think, I got to see that a year ago at a press screening, and after that, a lot of us were walking out saying that is, we all called it Kaiju West Wing. Mm-hmm. Because it's very political, right? It's a political drama with just happens to have a kaiju in it.
Just happens.
And I find that happens a lot, except for the found footage like Cloverfield, or I watched that movie The Monster where the mom and daughter are stranded in the middle of the road. I thought that was actually a pretty decent monster movie.
I think it also is when you go Universal monsters, movies were still something new, something that people had to go to because they were events. So a lot of people were still reading. So when you talk about The Wolfman, you talk about Frankenstein, you talk about Dracula, those were books that most people had already read. So they were a guaranteed bank. So, but when you're moving into the nuclear, I don't know what.
We're just gonna start saying the atomic. How about that?
The atomic, yeah. You enter the atomic age. It's because nobody knew what that did. You're blowing up make-believe villages in the Sands Desert. Like nobody knew what like a radioactive bomb would do in the long run. So like, hey, it turns a lizard into a 50-story beast. It makes a man grow to the Colossus. It does weird stuff.
That's how you
Wait,
get those eyes.
it doesn't do that?
I mean,
Yes, it does.
Well, I mean, that's how you
Only
get
in special occasions. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, or the hills have ice, and so nobody.
I was feeling it there. It was kind of like lifting up a little bit. I'm like,
It was all.
See,
It's
kind of levitating now.
It's the grudge.
yeah.
So
But that was the thing. And then when you get into slasher, it's because in the 80s, people were starting to become afraid of their neighbors. That's when the Son of Sam, that's when you start having serial killers, you have the Zodiac Killer, you have all these things. So what does Hollywood do? You
Bank on it.
Well, you bank on it. So what's the first slasher movie? It's Black Christmas. It's about a guy stalking a sorority house.
So what's the excuse for the day? Because we're not afraid of our neighbors. We just don't care anymore.
Correct.
We've
So
just been doing them for so long, this we like.
we're just like, okay, because are people just not afraid of monsters anymore? Do you think that's what it might be?
well,
I think
because
that's what it is.
I think also part of it is because you can turn on the TV every day and see like a real life monster on there.
How sad is that to have to say
You know?
out loud?
I know, it's so sad.
We know what you're going for, Mark.
Sorry.
We have North Korea, like
Weird
about
Chino
Tanukas, yeah.
person.
But at the same time, I think what's the new thing? It's everything on a camera now. It's
Oh, I'm sick
paranormal
of the found footage. I'm sick of the horror found footage films. I am done with found
Actually, though, there are some that are, when it's done with creativity and it's done like, I'll just plug a film right now. A friend of mine did a film that premiered last year at AFF called Found Footage 3D. And it's kind of a deconstruction of the found footage genre.
remember that one.
And it's really funny, and it's really smart, and it's really bloody. So
I like bloody films.
yeah, so you have to check it out. And that's what I said. You have to, if you're going to do found footage, you have to do it. It's really
You have to
hard
do it
now.
right.
It's
But it
really
seems
hard.
like everyone's doing that in horror because I love alien abduction movies, and so I look at it. Half of them are more than half are found footage movies, and the only one that's actually really good is Alien Abduction with the little kid and the thing falls out of space. That was pretty good. I like the new Blair Witch because I like the original
watch
Blair
it?
Witch.
watch the new
But
one?
there's something about found footage that I think they think scares people, but doesn't. Like you can't really see everything in focus, and people are like dying. I don't know why horror thinks that's another trope it has to fall to.
Oh, what was the one that came out, like, I think it was last year, Friends? About the Facebook?
Unfriended.
Unfriended. I was like, that was, there was moments that...
Put your hand in the blender!
I know, there was moments that were jumpy, and then I was like, okay, I'm waiting to see what's killing everybody, and then at the end, it was really bad, CGI ghost
Yeah.
thing.
And that was another one that we were talking about where the powers of the spirit or what have you just kind of changed to fit the
I
situation.
can't open a door and
It's
see
kind of
one,
like
but
the
I can
new.
in two.
It's kind of like how they keep bringing on the Ring movies, and her powers change each movie, and it gets really obnoxious because as somebody that read the Ringu series and watched the Japanese versions, to have the American versions come in and do weird stuff, it makes no sense.
Well, I think the last we'll talk about found footage is one of the best examples of how it's done right is Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Mm-hmm.
That one's done really right.
Which is also it's a deconstruction
Yeah.
of the whole horror genre.
Wrong is pretty much anything else. I'm just going to put it that way.
I think as far as going back to slasher versus monster, I think the monster can come back. If you want a really good example of a monster movie that exists, and you kind of have to look at it as the monster, is Final Destination.
I love Final
Because
Destination
death is the
movies.
monster in that thing. It's Rube Goldberg death, apparently. Like, I have to go through all these
Like
things.
elaborate mousetrap game deaths.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as monsters, Chucky's back. They're doing another the curse.
But if you think about that, that's
Chucky's a
also
slasher.
Yeah, Chucky's a slasher.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, the slashers are coming back. But
Okay, so would Samora and Kadako be considered monsters or slashers?
I say they're monsters.
I think
because
they're
a slasher to me is a creature that Kadako kills you through magical means, like through like we said, the hands coming out of my beard.
God, that's so frightening.
Right.
Out of the back of the hair.
I'm trying not to look at it.
Yeah.
Trying not to-
So,
It's okay, I'll save you.
Kadako and Stu, she comes out of the TV. And then
No, Samora comes out of the TV.
Samora comes out of the TV.
Kadako has
Out of your
a break
hair.
and she comes down the stairs.
Right.
Can you do that?
They're more
Can you actually do
To
it?
be able to.
Can you? Can you show us now? for the people who have not seen these films, can you do your own?
There's a table in the way.
Harley's like, I'll get down.
I was like, I'll do it. I used to do it all the time when we used to go to the premieres for those.
But I think it was slashers. Yeah, Chucky's back. You know, you could say Death is a slasher of those stupid Final Destination movies.
Well, from Harley's perspective, you do creepy cosplay almost for a living.
You know, we have Pyramid Head, we have the Shining Twins. You know.
Do you find it funner to do the monsters or the slashers? Like, what do you get the most reaction from?
I get the most reaction from monsters. You know, when we went and saw the new Ring movie, we went. We looked like a little girl's tea party because it was funny because Jill and I are in our little blue dresses and we brought Zephyr and she was Samora. And we all looked like we were sitting in the back of the movie theater where people are screaming and running around the movie theater screaming bloody murder. We're sitting back here giggling with teacups. So we had our own little scary girl tea party. But I mean, I have more fun doing monsters. I've got versions of Jason and Freddy, but there's only so much you can do with.
I agree with you on that fast.
Slashers.
Like, one of the reasons I prefer monsters over slashers is because there's a creativity behind the monsters and their designs. Even if it's a political or a cultural story, there's a lot of thought into what goes in that monster. Like, The Blob was an amazing feat just for its time.
Which is also one of the things where, bringing up The Blob, everybody a lot of times thinks about the old Steve McQueen The Blob.
I like the newer
Blob,
one.
the newer, yeah, because it's still like 30 years old.
Yeah, but
It's next year.
one where they're on the platform
Yeah,
and he grabs
and it is.
the bottom of the
And
barge.
and you know who wrote that? It's Frank Darabont.
Really?
Yeah.
So
good movie.
I enjoy that. So Harley, between monsters and slashers, who do you prefer?
I prefer monsters.
Why?
They actually scare me more. They're funner. You know, slashers, you know, as long as you don't play this stupid white girl in a horror movie, you can get away. But I mean...
And true, except they make movies now like The Final Girl and other things.
Yeah, they make stupid stuff like that. But I mean, I prefer monsters because they have... They're preternatural creatures that, you know, you've got to get away from.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't. You can't outrun a werewolf, no matter how much you try.
You could.
You could, it'd be real hard.
You could crawl up a tree. Dogs can't climb trees.
Hey, Harley, It Follows.
Oh, that was a horrible movie.
That was an awesome movie. You shut your face.
It Follows was a horrible movie. The whole message is don't have sex. Come on now, who's going to follow that?
That's what all slashers movies taught you.
That's kind of the concept of slasher movies. Like they had those stupid commercials. I guess it was Progressive commercials for Halloween a couple years ago. Why are we hiding in the garage with the chainsaws? Why don't we just get in the running car?
All right, Mark, between monsters and slashers, what do you prefer?
Okay, so I grew up watching slashers. Growing up as a kid in the 80s, that was slasher heaven, right? But secretly I love the artistry and the creativity of creating a really amazing monster and what goes into it, like we were talking about. Mm-hmm. And I was teasing y'all earlier, I was listening to the practical versus CGI. And like I said, when you blend the two together to create a really amazing monster, which is almost in everything that you see, unless you're looking at something pre-CGI, everything now it has some CGI to the practical. And when you can create a really amazing monster, whether it be in a straight horror film or in something like Pan's Labyrinth, or one other
Toro's God.
And another film that I'll just say right now, a good friend of mine, Chris, his film We Summoned a Demon just got announced to be in Telluride.
Nice.
Today, and that one's got a really great creature that y'all get to check out soon.
See, I love creature features.
And it's a demon. It's a practical demon. And so
before we get to Pocky, I laugh because you say you grew up in the 80s on slashers. I grew up in the 80s on monster films. Like, we were totally different here on how we grew up in the 80s because I remember all the slew of monster films, good and bad. Like this year, I'm going to buy Ghoulies because it's been my obsession all year. I'm going to buy Ghoulies because I remember I loved it, but I might hate it today. Who knows? But it's a fun monster film. Just like last year, my obsession was Pumpkinhead. I had to buy Pumpkinhead because I didn't own it. And that is an amazing design movie.
Yeah. And I mean, I watched all of those, but for some reason, it was just more of the slashers were always on.
Was your slashers Freddy and Jason and Michael, or were they other ones like Slumber Party and stuff?
No. They were more of the mainstream things that would show, and so branched off of there to go watch the more obscure ones, and then also the monster stuff. Because, like I said, I grew up also watching all the Godzilla movies, the kaiju movies, and all that. Yeah, and
Oh, Godzilla.
so I watched it, but it was as far as like horror, and I never really considered those horror. For some reason, I didn't.
You
I
don't
don't
consider slashers horror?
No. The Godzilla films. and all that.
I don't
still don't consider
because
slasher movies horror.
It's too much of a people story.
Yeah, I considered more of those like. As a kid, like, okay, I'm going to be bored for this amount of time, and then they're finally going to come out and fight. You know? what
Yeah, I
mean?
always used to just
As a
fast
little
forward
kid,
to the
yeah.
end.
But as a kid, you can't really do that. You know, when you're watching those things. As a
All right,
kid, on just
Pocky,
regular TV.
Monsters versus slashers, what do you prefer?
USA Up All Night.
You've been thinking about that one.
Yes, I have. I honestly.
Were you a Gilbert guy or a Rhonda guy?
Rhonda.
Okay.
Because Rhonda always had all the trauma flicks and whatnot because she actually knew Lloyd. So, and Gilbert, the problem is like he always tried to do too weird highbrow humor. Like he'd do the inverted letterbox where it was on the up, going north to south and not east to west for like all of his skits. So it's like he kept.
That'd be so annoying.
It would. But I mean, I was Rhonda because she actually had fun with just doing weird stuff.
Can you do your best Rhonda right now?
Oh, it would be USA Up All Night.
There you go. The world is a better place now.
So it was. I honestly. I know this is going to sound totally cheating, but I love both of them
Yeah,
because.
pick one. We're not.
No, I'm picking both.
We're not playing this.
Yes, I am picking both because
Wimpy game.
I love slasher movies as much as I love a good monster movie because to me
The
they're the
monsters
same.
weren't in a good movie.
Yes, they were. It was cute.
It was,
Harley, you're the most frightening thing on the show today.
but I'm saying it's like to me I love both of them because I don't know, I can't say one or the other because to me I love both of them. I really can't decide because I've literally been sitting here this time going, well, slashers, but you really also love this, but you also love this, and it's like
There goes Pocky being our wish-washy judge.
I am wish-washy because I
You
love.
cannot be by horror.
Yeah, you can't.
Yes, I can.
If
Yes,
Mark
I can.
says it, you can't.
Look,
So I have a question. What was your first slasher movie?
Oh God, I don't remember. Probably one of the Freddy movies. Friday the 13th. I think it was part 2. I think that was my first slasher movie. I can remember.
That would be Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Really bad edit on KTVT out of Dallas, Texas. Sunday afternoon. Really horrible cuts in the middle of scenes and. Y'all know KTVT out of
Yes.
Dallas.
Yes.
It was terrible, right? It was every
bad.
15 minutes, no matter what. If you were in the middle of a scene,
Middle of
commercial
the word,
drop.
they'd cut it off.
Commercial drop right there.
Yes.
And
It'd be terrible.
yeah, and the prints were terrible that they had, and it looked so you're really. I mean, it looked even grimier than Texas Chainsaw Massacre already looks. So that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre Sunday afternoon, KTVT out
I
of
have
Dallas,
a
the
secret
super ones.
confession I have to make about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I never watched it till after I watched House of a Thousand Corpses, and I loved
I
House of
agree.
a Thousand Corpses, and then I saw Texas Chainsaw
I
Massacre.
didn't
Like,
like.
this is the same movie.
I like.
No, I go back to House of a Thousand Corpses any day. I mean, as much as I love
I'm-
Leatherface, give me Captain Spaulding. any day.
I'll take.
I do like Kevin.
All right, Baki, your turn.
Mine honestly was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it was mostly because the area I grew up in was supposedly the area that the farmhouse was at.
Yeah.
Don't you love those urban myths that pop up like, it was killed right over there?
Well, actually, in this case, because I live in Cedar Park, Leander area, so it's near Sewage Junction where they claimed it was, and obviously it wasn't. But
Oh, yeah.
that was one of those always because it's in the middle of nowhere town.
I'm sure somebody got killed around there, though.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
probably drunk
Sewage
in the middle of the
Junction.
road.
Yeah, that's
Just
probably.
think of this: as somebody probably got killed around there.
Yeah, I'll take that any day. But
right,
yeah, no,
Harley?
Texas Chainsaw.
Mine was Sleepaway Camp.
Which one? One or two?
One.
One.
How about that ending?
She
I was
has
not
a what?
expecting that as a kid.
So, last question. We got to be quick. We're almost out of time. What is your favorite monster movie? Since we talk about slashers, so Pocky, yours.
My favorite monster is Godzilla.
Okay, Mark.
Oh Christ! All right. Since this is kind of a monster, kind of not, and this could take it into a whole other section or direction. There, Alien.
Okay.
As much as I want to say Dracula, my favorite monster is Kabako.
I can see why. And I'm with you, Mark. Alien is my favorite monster movie because,
You only like the Alien Queen.
no, I like Alien 1 and Alien 2.
I have a question. Would the Predator then be a slasher
So, yeah, totally. He's got knives.
and explosives?
Ugly monster.
Total Knives. So that's been our fun talk with Mark, looking at the history of monsters and slashers and how we evolved over time and what works, what doesn't work, and where the future is going to go. I'm guessing it's going to be more ghost stories and fake ghost stories like Housebound.
Ghosts are the only thing that's
I like how he's trying not to laugh over there.
Yeah. You can also watch him on Mark of the Beast with Logan and find out other wonderful things about horror movies that are happening here in Texas and the wonderful premieres with them.
All right, so we'll be right back after this for this week's 10 Things list. Our favorite monsters and slashers with
me.
And me.
We'll be right back.